Hi guys, good evening. So we are starting a brand new series for all of you, which is Introduction to Physiology, right? So we'll be taking care of general physiology in this module, and I'll be the one who will be teaching you physiology for your NEET PG exams, FMG exams, and your college professional exam. So my lectures are designed in such a way that it would incorporate all these three aspects. It is neither very concise, it is neither very precise, nor it is way too conceptual, right? It won't waste much of your time. It would be in a balanced fashion, and it would be slow and progressive rather than what you go for crash courses or would you go for 4 or 5 day courses for physiology lectures. So it won't be like that. It would be slow, conceptual, and it would build your foundation, right? So let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Anand Mani. I am an alumnus of Safdarjung Hospital, Vardhaman Mahavir Medical College and Safdarjung Hospital, New Delhi, and I have been teaching physiology for over 3 years now to NEET aspirants, right? So I'll be mentoring you for physiology. I know it's a basic clinical subject and it doesn't have much weightage, but then again you have to understand the significance of physiology when it comes to surgery, when it comes to medicine. All the applied physiological question comes for these subjects, right? So you have to be very thorough with your basic clinical subject so that you do well in your clinical subject. So you have to keep this in mind very thoroughly, right? Secondly, what we'll be doing in this chapter, we'll be studying homeostatic control in this module, and then we'll be progressing to the membrane system, and then we'll be seeing the cell biology and everything, right? So let's get started. Before starting, I would also like to introduce you to our Plus platform. So this is an amazing Plus platform for you, which is a paid platform. Obviously all good things are not free, right? So what you get over here, you get test series. One second, just a second. You get test series, you get doubt clearing sessions, you get live classes, and you get the recording of live classes. The best part that we missed out during our NEET PG preparation was this thing, doubt clearing session. I don't think you have been to any institution or any satellite course or any course whatsoever where you are getting live doubt clearing session, and it wouldn't have been possible in an auditorium of 600 people sitting. And what we used to do was we used to just mug up and write up all the stuff over here, but this is not the case here. Here you have an interactive session where you go for one-on-one doubt session. So suppose if you are having problem in any of the concept, you can right away ask your query and get your doubts clear. So this is the best part that I like about our Plus platform, right? Secondly, you have the choice of educators. You can study from 40 plus educators. There will be n number of educators for physiology, there will be n number of educators for anatomy, there will be n number of educators for all different subjects, right? Secondly, you can learn anywhere and any time. You don't have to go to your satellite courses. You don't have to go to seminar halls and sit for 12 hours. You can learn at the convenience of your home, which is again a very plus point, right? And all the classes are interactive and live. You don't have to see recorded sessions. All the classes are interactive and live, and the recordings will be also provided to you just in case you want to revise any concept, right? So that is also there. And plus you are getting live classes, doubt session and everything. And the best part is that you get to download the PDF of annotation. Suppose whatever I am writing on the board, you can download the PDF annotations right away. So you don't have to make your own notes. Your teacher's notes would be your notes. So again, it is a plus point for the Plus platform, right? There are several test series also available, which you can give free tests also. There are free mock tests for NEET PG that also you can avail. We have ongoing 44 courses for clinical subjects. We have 29 courses for paraclinical subjects, and we have 16 courses for preclinical subjects, which is again a boon for you guys. So there are n number of subjects, n number of teachers teaching them at the same time, and you get to unveil all of them with just a single click. All you need is a basic subscription. So how to get that subscription? You have to install the Unacademy Learners app, get onto our Plus platform. On the Plus platform, you will be seeing several courses, that is 1 month plan, 3 month plan, 6 month plan, 12 month plan, and 24 month plan. So if you're opting for NEET 2021, most of you are, so you take a 12-month plan. If you're opting for NEET 2022, you take a 2-year plan, and it will be beneficial. Now what you have to do is, once you have selected your plan, the price for 1 year would be 25,000 rupees. which is minimal, and the price for 2 year is even cheaper, and it is just for 40,000 rupees, which is even more minimal. But again, there is a catch. What is the catch? That here you have an option of putting a referral code. If you use this referral code for a limited period of time named Anand PG, if you use this referral code Anand PG, and you get an instant 10% discount. You get an instant 10% discount on all the courses, right? Suppose if you are taking a 1 year course, so that is from 25,000, it would come to 22,500. And if you are opting for a 2 year course, that would come from 40,000, it would come to 36,000 rupees. So again, this is a very beneficial platform, and you get to study at a constant pace. You get to study at a slow pace. You can study at your own pace. You don't have to rely on the auditorium. You don't have to rely on the teacher. You don't have to rely on the timings. So you can do it all at the convenience of your home, right? So all you have to do is enroll to this course, right? So let's get started with our session. So we'll be seeing homeostatic control, and I'll be introducing you control system of our bodies. Just a brief discussion of it, not too elaborate, not too distinct, just a brief discussion of the control system. Okay. So what we know as of now is that if you see our total body fluid, obviously it is approximately 60% of mass, right? Total body fluid, if you see our total body, that would be approximately 60%. Out of these 60% of the total body fluid, one third of my fluid is my ECF, extracellular fluid, and 2/3 of my fluid would be ICF, that is intracellular fluid, right? Now you would ask, what is intracellular fluid or what is extracellular fluid? I think you know it, but still it's my job to tell you, right? So suppose if this is a cell, any fluid inside the cell or in the interstitial spaces along the cell is intracellular fluid. So what is intracellular fluid? So ICF would be any fluid inside the cell or any fluid adjoining the interstitial spaces between the cell. Interstitial spaces, very small interstitial spaces between the cell would be also my ICF. Okay, then what is ECF then? So ECF is the fluid, like in case of vertebrates, you know that we have a closed circulatory system. So the fluid flowing along the cell, along our body, right? The fluid flowing inside our body is extracellular fluid. So any fluid outside the body would be ECF, right? Outside the body would be ECF. Now question comes, which one of them is responsible for our homeostatic control, ICF or ECF? The answer is pretty simple, my friend. The answer is ECF. Extracellular fluid is responsible for maintaining homeostasis in our body, be it thermoregulation, be it osmoregulation, be it control of excretory waste. We'll see one by one. We'll see all these aspects one by one. Be it transferring nutrients, be it transferring oxygen, be it transferring urea, right? So all these functions are done by the ECF. So ECF maintains our internal body environment. We know the blood osmolarity, right? Osmolarity of blood is 291 milliosmol agar per liter, right? Again, then if you narrow it down, so it rounds off to 300 milliosmol per liter, right? So this is the osmolarity of blood, and our ECF maintains this constant osmolarity of blood, right? So homeostatic control is regulated by our ECF. Now we can see a basic difference. We can see the basic differences between ICF and ECF. So what it would be? ECF is abundant in, we have read in lower classes also that the most abundant intracellular cation is potassium and the most abundant intercellular cation is sodium, we know. So ECF would be rich in sodium, right? ECF would be rich in calcium, right? ECF would be rich in chloride ion, right? ECF would be rich in bicarbonate ions, है ना, right? Plasma cells, remember bicarbonates, that CO2, H2CO3, again it comes under the ECF only. It's a part of blood, right? So these are the things that ECF would be rich with. ठीक है. Most abundant intracellular cation is potassium, magnesium, phosphate, 2 minus, no? Yeah, phosphate, right? So this would be our ICF, right? This would be our ICF, intracellular fluid, right? So this is, and ECF would be also rich in nutrients like glucose for transport, amino acid, fatty acid, and then again apart from it, it would also be responsible for transferring our excretory waste like urea, right? So these are the things that you can find in your ECF, and these are the things that you can abundantly find in your ICF, right? I hope I am clear. I hope I have not missed out on anything. So basically the question comes that which is the most abundant intracellular cation or which is the most abundant intercellular cation. So intra or inter, ICF you can call intercellular cation also, or extracellular fluid also, right? So this can be intercellular cation also, intercellular. So this is the most important one, and here this is the most important one for ICF and ECF, right? Now coming on to homeostasis. What actually is homeostasis? So homeostasis is nothing. It is just maintaining the state of your body, a constant state of internal environment. That is the characteristic features of warm-blooded animals, right? You remember? So it is the maintenance of constant internal state of body. Everything at a constant optimum level, be it the amount of oxygen in your body, be it the amount of carbon dioxide in your body, be it the amount of urea in your body, all has a normal range, everything, okay? And our body works on it to maintain it to a normal range, keep it to a normal range, right? Excessive glucose is taken out of your body, excessive urea is taken out of your body, right? And this is all a part of homeostatic control. Everything, every metabolic function in our body that is occurring is a part of your homeostatic control, right? Like thermoregulation, temperature, we can maintain a constant internal temperature, right? So thermoregulation is a part of osmoregulatory. Secondly, osmoregulation. Osmoregulation is a part of internal body maintenance, right? So this is again homeostatic control. Now how does this homeostatic control works? Obviously, as mentioned earlier, it is because of our ECF, right? So we'll see how the ECF flows to various parts of our body, right? So first, brief outline of the body control system. We will see negative control system and we will see the positive control system. We will see both the control system and which is more essential and which is responsible for death of an organism. Okay, so we'll see negative control system, and secondly we'll be seeing the positive control system. We have to remember that negative control system is more important in this aspect. So we'll start off with the blood circulatory system. We'll just go to the brief of the blood circulation and how exchange of substances to maintain homeostasis takes place, right? So we all know that blood flows from artery, right? It will flow from artery. So this is my lumen of artery, and this artery will break down into several small arterioles. So these would be my arterioles, right? So these arteries break down into several arterioles. Now these arterioles further break down. These arterioles further break down into very thin, fine network of simple squamous epithelial tissues, organisms, organs, that will be called, what do we call it? We call it the capillaries. We call it the capillaries, right? So here exchange of substances takes place, and again deoxygenation and deoxygenation again also takes place over here. So oxygenation and deoxygenation also takes place over this capillary network. And now when the exchange has occurred, these capillary network will again combine to form a smaller structure that is called venules, right? Smaller structure that would be called venules, and these venules will again combine to form a vein. So this is my artery. This would be forming smaller arterioles. This would be my capillaries. This would be my venules. Capillaries. This would be the venules, no, not this. Sorry, where did it go? Yeah. So this would be the venules, and again the vein. So this is the flow of blood. Blood flows from artery to arterioles. Exchange takes place in the capillaries, and then it combines from venules to vein, right? Okay. Now exchange takes place where? So here there would be some cell, and there would be an interstitial fluid between them, adjoining them. So this is the cell. There would be a basement membrane or some sort of interstitial fluid where diffusion takes place. So in majority of the cases in capillary, simple diffusion occurs, right? So what happens? Exchange of substances from this to this occurs over here. Now you have to mention this one line which has come in your question also. The line that was that all the blood in an entire circulatory system in normal condition, right? It flows through one circulation. Just cardiac output increases with the stroke volume. You know, stroke volume into heart rate is equal to cardiac output. We know that. So cardiac output would be, we'll see this in detail, stroke volume into heart rate. We will see this in detail in further lessons, right? So now this cardiac output would be lesser. Why? Because when we are at rest, this would be lesser when you are at rest, and it increases to 6 times when we are working or when we are exercising or when your body is in motion. So this cardiac output extensively increases. Why? Because your heart rate increases, your heartbeat increases, and your body compensates for transferring more and more substances. So this is how your blood circulatory system works in maintaining homeostasis. So what does it maintain? It maintains the constant quantity of glucose, constant quantity of amino acid, constant quantity of fatty acid, constant quantity of ions, constant quantity of cations and ions, everything, and constant quantity of oxygen and everything, right? So what all things it does? First, it will take nutrients, right? It will take nutrients in the ECF. So ECF, where does ECF gets its nutrients from? Anyone? Where does ECF gets its nutrients from? So what would we say? So ECF gets its nutrients from first it will get its nutrients from the digestive system, right? So it will get its nutrients from the digestive system or GI tract. Digestive system or GI tract, sorry. Secondly, it will get oxygen from lungs, O2 from lungs, okay? And it will do metabolic reactions in the liver, right? All the metabolic function would be occurring in the liver. So in the liver, it will be responsible for metabolic functions. Now this metabolic functions plays a very vital role because again it will combine all the factors like gluconeogenesis, glycogenolysis, glycogenesis, है ना. So formation of glucose, glycogen, fatty acid, glycerol, and everything takes place in these metabolic systems, and the optimum amount of any substance, the optimum amount of blood sugar level is maintained due to these homeostatic controls, right? Oxygen from lungs, it will take, alveoli will take oxygen from the lungs. So this is the thickness of alveoli. So this is the alveolar membrane, and exchange of gases takes place something like this. So this is the alveoli membrane, right? Here it will be the capillary network, and there will be the basement membrane adjoining it, and oxygen will diffuse from here and carbon dioxide will go outside, and nutrient, so oxygenated blood would flow back from the pulmonary vein into my left atrium, right? So this is how the circulatory system works. So this is the origin of nutrients. Digestive system or GI tract would give all the nutrients like glucose, amino acid, and everything will be absorbed from the digestive tract. Talking about the musculoskeletal system. Now when we talk about the musculoskeletal system, how is musculoskeletal system responsible for homeostasis? Is it or is it not? Everything, every response to maintain a say, all adaptive responses, all these kind of responses are responsible by our musculature, right? Anything, any homeostatic, suppose generating of body heat while you're running, sweating, shivering, again shivering is also movement of your muscle, right? So again it is also adaptive control, it is also control to maintain homeostasis. And you are going away from a stimuli, suppose this is a source of light, right? I close my eyes, musculature works, so we are getting into homeostasis. So getting away from any stimulus that is creating imbalance in my homeostatic level would be the work of the musculature system, right? Suppose if I touch something hot, right, it would again burn me. So in order to withdraw from it, our musculature works, right? So these kind of things will be responsible for musculoskeletal system. Now this musculoskeletal system would be responsible for maintaining homeostasis also. Now talking about the removal of metabolic end products. Obviously if we take in nutrients, we have to remove the metabolic end products, which is again very important point. So where does the metabolic end product, what are the metabolic end products? It is very simple. Carbon dioxide with the first metabolic end product. Now this carbon dioxide is removed from lungs. What would be the second metabolic end product? Urea. Urea would be removed from kidney. And we have heard cytochrome P450, you remember, right? It helps in detoxification of drug. It is present in liver. So again, detoxification of drug, detoxification of drugs occurs from in liver, and again it is taken out by my GI tract through fecal route. So these are the removal of metabolic waste that is taking part in my body to maintain homeostasis. If the level of urea rises in my body, it has got adverse effect to my body. If the level of any substance that is not excreted through, be it vitamins, be it anything, all water soluble vitamins in excess quantities are removed from urine, right? Then comes regulation of our body function. Now every function in our body is regulated by two major aspects. One is neural regulation and the second one is chemical regulation. So regulation, two kinds of regulation occurs. The first one would be neural regulation and the second one would be chemical regulation, right? So when we are talking about neural regulation, anything from synapse to stimulus to receptor to everything would come under neural regulation. Any mechanism like everything, CNS, ANS, everything, right? CNS, PNS and ANS, all everything. So what would be the point? So it will have basically three receptors. One is sensory input, then would be my CNS, and then it would be my motor input, Apart from it, there would be a different one that would be responsible for autonomic control, automatic control of our body, like my heartbeat, peristaltic movement, breathing, right? So autonomic. So the next one would be autonomic nervous system. Right. So these works in tandem to maintain homeostasis. Talking about chemical regulation, then we speak of hormones. Beat any hormone, thyroid gland, thyroxine, it would maintain my basal metabolic rate. ACTH, adenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH levels it will maintain. LH, FSH, all hormones, name any hormone, it has to do with certain homeostatic control. Like TCT, it reduces the blood calcium level. PTH, it works antagonistic to TCT, right? So again, it adrenal cortex, cortisol, glucocorticoid, mineralocorticoid, sex corticoid, all these hormones works in for regulation of my body function. So all the functions are regulated by these: lipolysis, gluconeogenesis, glycolysis, everything we will study in detail in these physiology lections, right? So this is just a brief introduction. I am just illustrating what physiology is. Then coming to the protection of our body. Protection of our body is also a vital role which comes under homeostasis only. Why protection comes under homeostasis? Suppose if any antigen gets inside my body, it will create adverse effect and it will disbalance my homeostatic level, right? It will disbalance my homeostatic. So this is protection of our body. Protection of our body again comes to play. Protection takes place by basically two systems. One is immune system, our obviously immune system, and the second would be my physical barrier or my integumentary system or skin, right? Integumentary system or skin. So this would be a part of my physical barrier. This would be a part of my physical barrier. Immune system will see in details. We'll see the T lymphocyte, we'll see the B lymphocyte, we'll see cellular defense, we'll see natural killer cells, we'll see everything. Neutrophils, we'll see monocytes, we'll see macrophages, and everything we'll be seeing in the immune system. And in the physical barrier like skin prevents anything entering in my bloodstream. It prevents anything entering my ECF or causing adverse effect to my body. So this is the part where protection of our body comes to play. Then comes reproduction. Now this sounds a bit odd. How is the reproduction a part of homeostasis? Is it or not? This sounds a bit odd to everyone. Sir, it's like sir पागल हो गया है, reproduction कैसे हो सकता है ना, right? So is it or is it not? Answer me in the comment section. Is it or is it not? See, when we talk about reproduction, every body system is organized in such a way, that it maintains automaticity of continuity of life. Now, how does continuity of life comes to play? Obviously, continuity of life comes to play with these systems only, right? Obviously, right? Normally reproduction doesn't play any role in homeostasis. Even if I don't reproduce, my body's homeostasis would be same. But taking in case of a species level, talking about an organism level, so continuity of species, continuity of life is also a part of homeostatic control. Write it down. Continuity of life is also a part of homeostatic control. This is very important, right? So our body progresses to be a part of automaticity of continuity of life, right? automatic continuation of life occurs in our body, right? And it is also a part of homeostatic control. So if question comes in, is reproduction a part of homeostatic control? Then the answer would be yes. It is a part of our homeostatic control when taken when we see the broader picture. When we see the broader picture, it is taken as a part of homeostatic control. Okay? Now talking about the control system of our body. Now this is a very interesting bit. And you have heard of a term called negative reinforcement force, right? So our body works in that phase only. Every control, majority of our body regulation is done by negative feedback mechanism, not positive. Remember this. Majority of our body's mechanism is done by negative feedback mechanism, not positive. You have to keep that in mind. So when you talk about control system of our body, obviously there are two control systems of our body. One would be regulating everything. So if we talk about the basic regulation, so what is the basic regulation? Continuity of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So regulation of oxygen and carbon dioxide concentration in ECF. Regulation of oxygen and carbon dioxide concentration in ECF. Obviously it is controlled autonomically. Obviously it is based on the hemoglobin buffer system also. We have read hamburger phenomena, we have seen chloride shift, we have seen, just we'll get onto that. We'll be seeing it in much greater detail, all these aspects, be it hamburger phenomena, chloride shift, oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve and whatnot, right? And second one would be regulation of atrial blood pressure. Now this is also very major role. Regulation of arterial blood pressure. Why do we need to regulate arterial blood pressure? Because it regulates the volume and intensity of blood inflowing into. Suppose if the blood pressure is very low, my blood won't reach to my brain cells, right? If the blood pressure is very high, it would cause rupture, it would cause what do we call it? I'm forgetting the word. It would lead an aneurysm, or it would again let fluid flow into your blood, right? So this is also called, so regulation of atrial blood pressure. So these two regulation occurs in our body, and it is controlled by two feedback mechanisms. The first one is called negative feedback mechanism, and the second one is called positive feedback mechanism. So we'll see two types of feedback mechanism. The first one would be negative feedback mechanism, and the second one would be positive mechanism, right? So what is negative feedback mechanism? If you have remember any hormone action, any name any control system. So suppose I'll give you one example. Suppose you have read it in reproduction in lower classes, right? My hypothalamus releases GnRH, right? Okay, now GnRH acts on anterior pituitary. GnRH acts on anterior pituitary to release LH and FSH. FSH acts on Sertoli cell and LH acts on Leydig cell. Leydig cell releases testosterone. Sertoli cell releases androgen binding protein which accumulates testosterone in the testes. So when there is excess of testosterone, so Sertoli cell releases inhibin. Now this inhibin acts as a negative feedback mechanism. Do you see any positive feedback mechanism? No, there is only a negative feedback mechanism. Again, if your testosterone level is high, again it will cause a negative feedback mechanism to stop it from doing it. So negative feedback mechanism always saves your life, always saves your body, always keeps your body in homeostatic control. Rather, when we talk about positive feedback mechanism, I'll give you another example for positive feedback mechanism, which would differ from this, which would differ from this. Like I'll say you, any mechanism. My atrial blood pressure. You have read about renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. We have read about ADH, vasodilation, blood pressure normal, right? Again, it is a negative feedback mechanism. Any mechanism you take care. Autorhythmicity of heart, transport of carbon dioxide. It is again a negative feedback mechanism, right? Atrial maintenance of atrial pressure. Again, it is also a negative feedback mechanism, right? Can you give me an example of positive feedback mechanism? Comment. Write down in the comment section after the lecture. Give me an example of positive feedback mechanism. That is your homework, right? Give me an example of positive feedback mechanism. That is your homework. Or I'll mention it in the end of the class. Either way, right? So this is the negative feedback mechanism. This is the positive mechanism. Obviously, any feedback mechanism that works is the negative feedback. Now see, I'll give you an example where you can understand. Suppose if my blood pressure is 110 mm of Hg, okay, I transfuse 5 units of blood. I did not require 5 units of blood. Obviously, my blood pressure would rise to, 175 mm of Hg, hypothetically. Now this 175 mm of Hg, what is it? This is the elevated pressure. This shouldn't be my normal blood atrial pressure, and it would cause damage to my organs. So what do? I inculcate negative feedback mechanism. What? It will regulate the pressure. It will release the pressure. How? By vasodilation. It would release the pressure by vasodilation. It would reduce the cardiac output. And again, my body's pressure would go on to approximately 125 mm of Hg. Now you have to remember this. There is a probability of error that we'll get to. There is a probability of error in the correction. Suppose if my hypothetically, if my normal atrial blood pressure would be 120 mm of Hg, okay. Now what we call is, there is a term called gain. And this gain is equal to correction by error. We have seen questions on this gain. This gain is equal to correction by error. What do you mean by these two terms, correction and error? First, suppose if my normal blood pressure was 120 mm of Hg, hypothetically, and this blood pressure somehow rose to 200 mm of Hg. And instantly my negative feedback control acted onto it and got it somewhere to 140 mm of Hg, which is bearable within the normal range. So what is the error in this? This is the optimum value. So the error would be, I hope you understand, error would be optimum value minus the enlarged value, or ulta. I'll do the opposite of it, right? It would be negative feedback value minus optimum value, right? So what is the negative feedback value? That is 140 mm of Hg minus how much we do? 120 mm of Hg. So the error is 20. This is the error. Correction. How much correction did it do? It did from 240 to 140. What is the? So correction is final level, initial level minus final. So that is 200 minus 140. That is equal to 60. So my correction. So what would be my gain? Gain would be my correction. Correction is, that is 60 by 20. So this would be my gain. So this is how you measure the gain of a control system. So this is the gain of the control system. It is the correction by error. no gains, no body system gets this to actual optimum level. Obviously it would be somewhere around a higher elevated level. It would be within the normal range, but not at the optimum level. It would be within the normal range, but not at the optimum level, right? Suppose anything you take, suddenly you take vasodilation, you get into an anaphylactic shock. We plug in epinephrine. Will your body blood pressure at the optimum level initially only? Negative feedback occurs if epinephrine works, but again it takes time. And eventually it will get back to its normal space, but then there is an error. There is always an error. And this is how we measure gain of a control system. This is important for your NEET. You can get questions from gain of the control system. So this is the part actually that will come on your NEET. Apart from it, I don't think any question would come from introduction to physiology, right? Now talking about the positive feedback. Positive feedback is actually a meanness. Matlab, most of the time positive feedback is what kills you. Suppose I have transfused 5 liters of blood in you. Okay. Now what will happen? Suppose if I take an example, I have infused 5 liters of blood in you. A normal body cardiac output is 5.5 liters. No. Somehow you get into an accident. And you lose 2 liters of your blood. You lose 2 liters of your blood. What will happen? My blood pressure will go down, right? My blood pressure will, okay. Obviously there would be low blood in my coronary artery, but in order to compensate this low blood pressure, my cardiac output has to increase. So my number of heartbeat is increasing. Now see, two conditions we are getting. My heart is receiving less O2. And cardiac output also I have increased. Cardiac output I have to increase. So that what we have to do is I have to increase my heartbeat. So requirement of O2 increases, but I am getting less amount of O2. What will eventually happen? You'll get a heart attack, right? Your body will heart will get into cardiac arrest and you will eventually die. So this positive feedback mechanism is the cause of your death. I hope you understand, right? So this is how positive feedback mechanism works. Okay? In certain cases, positive feedback mechanism saves life also. Example, clotting of blood, right? In clotting of blood, what is happening? It is a positive feedback mechanism that plugs in and prevents flow of blood. So in an example, I told you an example of positive feedback mechanism is here, clotting of blood, right? Clotting of blood again is a positive feedback mechanism which will save your life, right? And then one more positive feedback mechanism that will save your life is generation of nerve impulse, conduction and generation of nerve. Again here opening, है ना? Positive feedback mechanism. The second one would be generation of nerve impulse. So majority of positive feedback mechanisms is threatening for your body homeostatic control, but again these two are good ones. Okay, write it down. Now coming to adaptive control, we saw homeostatic control. Now what the hell is adaptive control? What do we mean by adaptive control? Any mechanism to get into homeostasis. Suppose if we heat iron, it takes certain amount of time to get back to its normal pace, right? To its normal temperature, to its environmental temperature. It radiates out heat. So any feedback mechanism that is working in our body, it would take a certain while to get back to its normal state. Suppose adaptation we have seen about altitude sickness. You go to higher altitude, your atmospheric oxygen level decreases. So what your body does, it tries to create more and more hemoglobin. It tries to get more and more hemoglobin so that the carrying capacity of oxygen increases. Now, overnight this cannot happen, right? You acclimatize during a course of time, है ना? So what do you do in this period of time? We do adaptive control, right? We get into a certain adaptation. We try to adapt to the newer situation till my negative feedback control is enforced, right? So this is what adaptive control. So adaptive control also plays a vital role. It plays a vital role till feedback mechanism is able to regulate my body function, So this is what adaptive control is all about, right? This is what adaptive control is all about. So this is the basic introduction to physiology. We'll see cell in the next class, and then we'll see membrane system in the other classes, right? So this was nothing, this is just a brief. The only question that you can expect from this topic or from this lecture is the gain thing that I taught you, right? So it is a brief introduction of our body system. We will be getting into much more detail, and we will be completing the entire syllabus. I won't be leaving out anything. See, whether it's important, I will be mentioning that it is important for your NEET point of view, and it is not important for your NEET 2020. But I will be mentioning everything. I want to take the entire, I don't want you to miss out on any concept. I don't want you to mug up everything, right? So my lectures would be designed in such a way that I will be mentioning all the aspects of it. Matlab, in short, you can understand that your entire Guyton or Gannings, it would be illustrated by me, right? So I hope you like the video. Guys, you can follow me over here on the Unacademy app. You can follow me here on unacademy.com@AnandSir01. So this is my URL where you can follow me on the Unacademy app. I also take special classes, right? I also take free special classes on this app, so you can follow me there. Okay, I also take free special classes on this app, so you can follow me here, and I'll see you here, right? I hope you like the videos, guys. This was my first video with this screen, so I hope you like this video. Do subscribe to our channel, as it is a new channel, and you'll be getting all the subjects, be it physiology, biochemistry, anatomy, all the subjects you will be getting by different educators onto this YouTube channel. So this is the first dedicated YouTube channel where you will be getting actual content, and your entire syllabus would be completed. So do share it with your friend also. Let this family grow, and we can work together on strengthening your NEET PG course module. So I'll see you tomorrow in the next one. My classes would be regularly at 4 p.m. right? So on 4 p.m. at 4 p.m. I'll be taking your regular classes onto this platform. So I'll see you guys. Bye bye. Take care.